Here's Mayor Gentry joining us.
All right, Mayor Gentry, you there?
Yes. Am I on mute or not?
No, you're not on mute. The whole world's watching and waiting on John Gentry.
Well, I would say they've waited on worse things, but that's really not true.
Well, welcome. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I want to call this meeting to order and call on Mayor Brady, if I could, at this time for invocation.
Let us pray. Dear precious and eternal Heavenly Father, dear Lord, as we come to you this morning, dear Lord, with humble hearts, we just ask for your guidance and direction as we make decisions for our communities, dear Lord. We ask that you be with those that are facing health issues, dear Lord, and financial issues, dear Lord. Dear Lord, we just ask that you be with the individuals, dear Lord, on this meeting today. Dear Lord, as they represent their communities and make decisions and work for their citizens. Dear Lord, we pray for our nation, dear Lord, and let us always keep our eyes on you. And we ask this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Mayor Brady. And again, welcome everyone. Good morning. We appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy schedules. And probably like me, I wish we were at Ruth Chris Steakhouse having a normal annual meeting today. I miss that. This part I'm going to read, so I'll make sure I say it all this time. I think last meeting I didn't. We're once again holding our board meeting via Zoom due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and in conjunction with Governor Lee's Executive Order number 60, which allows for virtual meetings held prior to September 30th. This meeting was advertised and interested parties were provided with a link to participate. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted to our website upon conclusion. All participating members need to state their name following a motion or any other actions taken. All votes will be recorded as roll call votes. However, in the interest of time, unless members have an objection, I will only be asking for any opposing votes or abstentions. If none are expressed, we'll move the item for unanimous approval based on a yes vote. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay, Chad, you got any additional instructions for everyone?
Sure. Just real quickly, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Just a few quick notes about interacting on today's Zoom meeting so that we can ensure the meeting runs as smoothly and efficiently as possible. Everyone except the main speakers may be muted during the meeting, and this is to cut down on background noise and any feedback we may have. For our phone users, to mute and unmute yourself, you may either use the mute button on your device or you can use *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And if you'd like to ask a question of the group or make a comment, just remember to unmute your microphone, or you may also utilize the chat box in this meeting as well, and we'll keep an eye on that. When it comes to a vote, I will be putting a reminder up on the screen just to unmute your microphone and put it back on mute when you're done. So again, welcome. Glad to have everyone.
Thank you, Chad. Mayor Cartwright, the roll call.
Good morning.
Greg Ridley,
Here.
Gary Davis,
Here.
Michael Brady,
Here.
Jim Coppinger,
And Sade representing.
all right, David Jackson,
Here.
John Gentry,
Here.
Bill James,
Here.
Robbie Hatcher, George Thacker,
Here.
Keith Cartwright is here, Philip Cagle, Kevin Brooks, Kelly Gibbs, Andy Burke.
Sharita Allen representing.
Okay, Cherie, thank you. Kelly Gibbs, Andy Burke, I see Mark Myers, Chuck Burris, Jeremy Bivens, Doug Collins, Gay Lou Allen, Dwayne Land, Ted Rumley.
Here.
Thank you, Ted.
Present.
Shannon Whitfield.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Watson. Mike Bell. Ron Travis. Warren Mackey. Erskine Oglesby, John Prophet.
Here.
Nancy Sutherland.
I'm here.
Okay, Nancy, we got you. We have a quorum.
Okay, quorum is present. Minutes were previously emailed to everyone. As for any revisions or modifications, does anyone have any? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve. Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve, Cartwright.
Second,
Second, Mayor.
George Thacker. George Thacker.
okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion's unanimous, sends the way it will be recorded, right, Beth?
Yes.
Okay. Administrative reports. John Gentry, Finance Chairman. You got the June, July financial statements?
Actually, I just did find them. But an inside joke with Beth, but anyway, she knows what I'm dealing with. Finance Committee met on September 15th. The members in attendance included Cartwright, Mayor Davis, Mayor Jackson, Mayor Brady, Mayor Ridley, and Mayor Llewellyn. We reviewed the financial statements for the year end June 30th, which are included in your materials. These statements are unaudited at this time, subject to change upon completion of our independent CPA firm, Aldens and Jenkins. The preliminary audit has already been completed. The June 30, 2020 financial statements, your balance sheet, your total assets, $15,104,087 against total liabilities, $4,011,278, and the fund, leaving the fund balance at $11,092,809. Year ended with $225,016 of revenues in excess of expenses. The only significant change on the balance sheet is the movement of Chattanooga's IDB bridge loan funds of $500,000 from assets and cash restricted to liabilities due to other funds. Once reviewing the contract regarding these funds, our auditors felt that these to be reclassified as fiduciary funds based on the repayment requirements. Any questions on that? Jolly will give us a little bit more insight. On your consolidated statement of revenues and expenses, of course, that's 100% of the fiscal year with the June 30 financials. Revenues are 92% of the budget, or $15,655,987. And this is due to the inability to disperse the WIOA dollars for training, the OJTs and IWTs, and all the other acronyms that we have with workforce development that Beth always loves to throw at us. On the expense side, the only, for the year end, the only line item significantly over the budget is marketing and miscellaneous at 189% of the budget. Overall operating expenses, however, which is line number 22, are 87%, or $1,005,264 below budget. On your summarized statement by department, which reflects your year-end revenues and expenses, showing to the good of $225,016. Administrative overhead came in under 5% at 4.56%. And lastly, you have a summary of the cash flow for the year and the balances for individual loan funds. The Finance Committee does recommend acceptance of the June statements as presented, and this does come in the form of a motion from the committee.
Okay, we have a motion. Thank you for that report, John. Do we have a second?
Second, Cartwright.
And this time I will do it right, I think. Any opposing votes or abstentions? If not, the motion passes unanimously. Budget amendment number 1, John.
Yes. You have in your packet is a budget amendment that has the footnotes that explains the changes. It's primarily carryover funds from aging, workforce, and new funds from rural development. Increases the revenues by $1,200,775. And the expenses are reflected on the following page in the same amount, and they're mostly pass-through funds with the exception of $227,666 that's found under the contract services for staffing of new rural development initiatives. The Finance Committee recommends approval of budget amendment number 1 as presented.
Okay, and that comes in the form of a motion. Do we have a second to the budget amendment?
Second, Sherita Allen, Andy Burke.
Okay. Are there any opposing votes or abstentions? What was the comment? Okay. No opposing votes or abstentions? If not, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, July financial statements, John.
No,
No.
we have August, because August wasn't closed. I'm sorry. We did July statements with finance, but they now have August statements. They're more current.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
August financial statements then, right?
Yes.
Okay,
And it
John.
would be me.
Okay.
Hey, before we go there, Mr. Chairman, I do want to note that the management did share in the committee some significant figures on the history of the district, showed a growth in the fund balance from 06 to 2020, an increase of $10 million in the fund balance, and historical interest earned on the accounts during that time. And we just want to give some shout out to Jolly and her staff for the interest of over $500,000 that moving those things and being aggressive with those idle funds. So we do want to commend the staff and administration on maximizing those idle funds. We also received a report of the COVID CARES money, but other than that, that does conclude the report.
All right, well, we'll call on Beth now to give the August financials.
Yes. August statements were not available during the finance committee. Since then, they have been completed. They have not been presented to finance committee, so we will need a motion in a second. If you look at the balance sheet, assets are at $14,753,830. Liabilities are at $3,606,027. And fund balance is $11,147,803. And the month ended with $54,994 of revenues in excess of expenses. We apologize for the echo, guys. If you'll move to the next page, this is your consolidated statement. You are into 2 months of the fiscal year, are right at 16.6% of the year. Revenues again are running slightly behind at 12%. The only line item that exceeds the budget is line item 15, which is insurance at 27%. This is because it's paid quarterly up front. Operating expenses, line item 22, are at 14%, or $216,766 below the budget. Everything below line 22 are pass-through expenses. You have the summary by department. Administrative overhead for the month was at 4.84%. And lastly, you have the summary of cash flow for the year that also gives the accounting of the individual loan funds.
Get to start over. Thanks, Beth, for that August report. Has not been to finance. Is there any questions about the August? If not, we'll need a motion on this one. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman. This is John.
Okay, thank you, John. Do I have a second?
Second, Ted Rumley.
A motion and a
Thank
second.
you.
Are there any opposing votes or abstentions to approving the August report? If not, motion passes unanimously. Anything else, Beth? Okay. Next on the agenda, personnel updates. Don Kellerman, Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, we have 57 employees. We do have vacant positions currently in our aging department. We have 3 positions in aging, one for a CREVA advocate, senior health coordinator, and a program support coordinator. Economic Community Development currently has 2 vacancies as well, for regional planner and housing coordinator / planner. We have several employees that are still working on a hybrid alternate work site. This is to limit number of staff in the office on a daily basis. That seems to be working out very well. To date, we have had 3 positive COVID cases in our office, and we've had a couple of exposure quarantines. That ends the personnel report.
Okay, anyone have any questions of Don on the personnel? If not, moving on, you have I guess it's a resolution in front of you. The board discussed in June expressing our appreciation to the General Assembly and to the governor for approving the $200 million included in Governor Lee's budget for local government support and for moving all of the requirements. This was one of the easiest things I've dealt with state government since I've been here. I know that it really went well, and we really appreciate it. So this is basically a thank you to our legislators and the governor. And we will share it with them once this resolution is approved. So do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion made, James.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second,
Brady.
Blue Allen.
Okay, are there any opposing votes or abstentions? If not, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on, loans for approval, Todd Byram.
Morning. This loan was presented to loan committee and approved a couple of weeks ago, and it's being presented in a motion based on that recommendation from the loan committee. The loan is to Apocalypse Properties, and I'm going to make a correction. I put the wrong loan amount in the original one. That was $60,000. The actual loan amount's $100,500, and it's been corrected on the screen version. Apocalypse Properties requests $100,500 in funding from the EDA RLF loan fund to assist in the purchase of commercial property to house its operating company, Davis Key Outdoor LLC, to allow them to move from a current leased space. Total project cost is $335,000, and we're partnering with Tennessee Valley Credit Union on this deal. Collateral would be a shared first lien position on the property and a shared first security interest in UCC filing on other business assets. The loan will be guaranteed by the operating company and the owner, Stephen Davis. The loan will have a term of 20 years, priced at 5%. The business currently has 12 employees full-time and 1 part-time, and they're projecting hiring another 12 full-time employees over the next 12 to 24 months. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, any questions for Todd? If not, this comes in the form of a motion from the loan committee. Do I have a second to the motion?
Yes, George Thacker.
Hey, George, thank you. Anyone have an opposing vote or an abstention? If not, the motion passes unanimously. Beth, Todd, the EDA CARES Act.
I'll let Todd review this. You are basically taking the same action you took in our previous board meeting. EDA required that they signed off on these plans before you all approved them. So in keeping with their requirement, I'll let Todd just briefly review what you are once again approving in accordance with what EDA wants.
Okay, this is just a timeline. This has to do with an award of $1.1 million for new loan funds. The highlights are on that second page. I won't read them all to you, but it just gives you a game plan of what we're going to do with that money as far as getting it out. And they're giving us 2 years to get it out on the street, but we're going to try to do that in a little less than a year. We've already met with some regional banks in the area about doing these loans and participation to help restructure some debt for some people that have been affected, some of their businesses that have been affected by COVID. But if you have any questions about the timeline, just let me know.
Okay, any questions of Todd or Beth on this? If not, I need a motion to approve the EDA CARES Act Relief Work Plan. Have a
So
mo-
moved. Sherita Allen for Mayor Burke.
Thank you. A second? Well, do I have a second?
Second, Mayor Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor Jackson. Any questions or comments? If not, any opposing votes or abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, foundation, John Gent. Well, okay,
On the temporary amendment. Yeah.
we approved the work plan, then we got to approve the amended plan, right?
Correct.
Does that make it right?
Yes, sir.
You need anything else to say there, Todd?
No, this is just approving our current plan on loan funds that we already have, and EDA is allowing us to make some changes. Basic changes are we're taking our pool of 3 different loan funds and combining them to put them all under the same rules as far as where we can lend. So they're all 3 available in all of our 13 counties. Before, some of them were limited as far as city limits, but that's been changed. And it allows us to have a little more flexibility in the interest rates being charged. We're waiving the requirement for a bank letter saying that it's an unbankable deal. And I think this was also approved by you guys back in June, and then now the EDA has approved it last week. So we're bringing it back to you.
Bringing it back to us. I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Mayor Gentry.
One, okay. Need a second?
Second,
Second.
say.
Any opposing votes or abstentions? If not, it's approved unanimously. Now we'll go to the Southeast Development Foundation. John, I believe.
I can. We discussed this in a finance committee meeting where the development district did receive $405,000 of COVID CARES Act money for the nonprofit arena, and it would be going to the Southeast Development Foundation's name. And due to this, need to open a bank account in the Development Foundation's name. And the finance committee did recommend approval. And if Beth or Jolly want to provide any additional explanation, please feel free to do so.
I will just add, number one, it is not an LLC, so that is, it is incorporated. You don't want a foundation to be a limited liability corporation. You will recall that we received a $600,000 donation for the South Cumberland Learning Center in conjunction with the additional $400,000 of nonprofit money. The foundation suddenly has $1 million and will have activity. So it's in your interest and the board's interest to have that in a separate bank account.
Okay, any questions? This is to set up a bank account for the Development Foundation. Comes in the form of a motion from finance, right, John?
Correct.
I need a second.
Second, Ridley.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions or comments? Any opposing votes or abstentions? If not, the motion passes unanimously. You know, Chad, since you're in charge of all of this, the only person who has the echo on her laptop is your boss.
I wish I could fix it, but it's just because of 2 laptops being in the same room.
And I keep muting it and it still's doing it, so. But anyway. Okay, Beth, annual report. Everyone should have a copy of the annual report, I believe. Is that right, Beth?
Correct. Everyone does have a copy. These are not the best circumstances under which to present the annual report. However, we're going to do our best. You'll notice the theme was adapting to change to achieve success. In 2020, change has been the name of the game. If you look on the page 4 and 5, You'll notice that we can't do this without our finance staff. You'll see that we basically had an operating budget right at 7 million. We passed through over $9 million, almost 10. You'll see 64 full-time staff. We used to give you the number of disbursements or checks that finance issued every year. It's just too many to count, and we can't thank them enough for their work. If you will move over into the report, page 8 starts with your SET Cares program. This is the aging and disability group. It is by the numbers. If you'll look at page 13, I'll let Chad move over to that. You'll notice that this is by the numbers. These are the people that have been served throughout the year by county. You'll notice that the staff handled almost 9,000 inquiries for information and assistance. They assisted over 400 clients in the elder abuse program, continued to deliver meals to 823 individuals and fed 827 others at congregate meal sites. This does not include their small restaurant initiative that they did once the pandemic required people to shelter within. Again, I'm not going to review all the numbers for you. They're pretty amazing when you take a look at the overall work during this year that included a pandemic. If you'll move on to SET Works, that is your workforce and development programs. You'll notice that this past year they served over 73 justice-involved individuals. They assisted with unemployment claims, although that's not our primary purpose. But the staff spent long hours trying to assist employers and employees with their unemployment claims. There were almost 66,000 unemployment claims in our region, and more than 17,000 workers impacted. And we worked through 16 different companies with warn notices. And I have to give a big shout out to Michelle and Beth Keelan and that staff that was putting in literally 18-hour days to try to help people. Even during the pandemic, we still awarded 9 incumbent worker training grants and trained 141 participants. And there were 16 on-the-job training grants awarded and 77 participants trained. If you move on to SET Builds, I'm going to very quickly give you the overview. Even during the pandemic, the Tourism Association still launched a Bledsoe Geo Tour. They built collaborative new marketing websites in the Sequatchie Valley and Tennessee's South Cumberland, and they continued the completion of the scenic byways of the Southeast. In your packet, there's some data on the increase in outdoor recreation that has occurred during the pandemic. So the fact that Jenny and the team were well into promoting your outdoor assets was right on the money. The economic development staff completed over 43 requests for information, had 10 prospect visits, and assisted with expansions and locations that resulted in $504 million of new capital investment, created 1,800 new jobs, and retained almost 300 jobs. In-house, our planning and community development and economic development staff are administering over $47 million worth of grants in all different areas. That $57 million worth of grant money has leveraged total projects in excess of $300 million. And that work has continued. I don't want to steal their thunder, but you'll hear Chuck talk about some new grants that have been awarded. Lastly, at the end, you'll see a page dedicated to the pandemic and the activity that has ongoing with the staff during this time. Again, economic development staff worked with a number of different local governments to disperse small business assistant grants. Those went to over 172 small businesses throughout our region, and they were in excess of $1 million. The aging staff went to work real quickly in some of our rural communities to get with small restaurants and launched a meals program where they fed seniors and kept small restaurants in business during the COVID. And then we also worked with local governments to start taking advantage of some COVID cares opportunities with EDA grants and some others. That concludes the report. I'm not really doing it justice, but it was a very, very busy year and the staff did amazing work.
Okay, Beth, thank you for those highlights and looking through the report. I haven't had time to really read it yet, but looking through it, it's another very good looking report. We thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions of Beth? If not, we need a motion to accept the annual report.
Motion
Ted
made,
Rowland
Mayor
makes a
James.
motion.
Did we get who that was? Mayor James?
Yes.
Okay, need a second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? If not, any opposing votes or abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Program updates, community development and planning. Chuck Hammonds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You do have on the right side of your packet, your grants report that you will see. Any questions, please let us know. That should tell you administering projects going forward. I did want to bring you up to speed on LPRFs, Local Parks and Recreations, are due October 8th. There's a new catch this year. You have to have a complete community parks and rec master plan to be eligible to apply. We have an ARC workshop October 7th that we will attend on your behalf, and ARC pre-apps are due December 4th. So we've already started meeting with folks and starting to develop projects. We do have a Tennessee repair loan program we just started with THDA. You have to meet some low to moderate income guidelines. It's a 5-year forgivable loan, and the maximum is $25,000 on a project to make needed housing repairs on emergency systems. And then just so you know, we did get 8 CDBG, our community's got 8 CDBG funds out of 11 funded. It's better than our 50%, so we got more than the state on that. We took them to town. And then just so you know, we do have a new drone to fly with. It actually takes a 4K resolution and has a 360 that our previous one did not have. We currently have not weaponized it, but that is in consideration. And does anybody have any questions? Yes, it was called if you have any questions about the drone.
This is John. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions. On the LPRF grants, I know that if you have an existing open grant, you're not eligible, but they were going to provide a date to have those finished by that you still may be eligible for this round. Did they ever announce what that date would be?
They did, and I'll have to look it up. I believe it's in middle of October, John.
Great.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Austin about your all situation. He's trying his best.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but we're pushing it as hard as we can.
And I think I saw somewhere a comment about LIDAR in the region. How much is it? Just our industrial parks and areas that have LIDAR, or the entire Southeast Tennessee?
We have LIDAR for the entire Southeast, sir.
Cool. Wow.
And North Georgia.
And Northwest Georgia.
And what foot intervals? How does that?
I think from 2 foot.
We can do it in 2-foot intervals.
The entire Southeast?
Yes. And I believe the latest we have was from 2016. Sequatchie was a pilot program, so they're getting ready to fly it again soon, but it'll probably be another couple of years before they do our 10 counties again.
And that's available to all of us at no charge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
It is a big file.
Thank you. That helps on a lot of our landfill issues, actually.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Any other questions for Chuck? If not, we'll move on to SETA Economic Development. Stephanie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So economic recovery is happening. While project activity seemed to slow down in the fourth quarter of 2020 of SETD's 2020, it didn't completely stop. We had some communities in our region experience company announcements during the quarter that included existing industry expansion, new headquarters operation, and even a first Southeast U.S. site location in one of our communities. In July, Avogen announced its $35 million investment in creation of 36 new jobs in Pikeville, and will have a ripple effect that will impact farms in Bledsoe County and the surrounding ARC communities, with an additional $55 million investment in breeder farms and 164 more jobs. Also, locally sourced grain resulting in annual purchases of 2 million bushels of corn, 150,000 bushels of oats, and 15,000 bushels of wheat will have a significant impact on local farmers. To assist with the project, our staff completed fast track economic development grant application on behalf of the community and is administering $500,000 in grant funds. We've also prepared a TDOT application for a state industrial access road and are administering that project as well. In August, announcement was made, Master Manufacturing Group officials announced that the company will relocate its headquarters and manufacturing operations from Cordova, California to Dayton, Tennessee. The project represents creation of 72 new jobs over the next 3 years and $3.9 million in investment. The staff completed a fast track economic development grant application on behalf of the Dayton IDB and is administering $500,000 in grant funds as well. During the first quarter of 2021, we received 13 RFIs and were able to submit 3 responses on behalf of our communities. And so far, company announcements that have been made will result in $229.2 million in capital investment and 513 jobs once those come to fruition. We continue to work other non-traditional economic development opportunities throughout the region in our communities, and we've able to assist some with our SR2, the SETA SR2 Community Assistance Grant Program, feasibility studies for sewer and Pelham at the industrial park there, and also partner with Etowah Utilities to obtain engineering design work for their North Etowah Industrial Park. We're also working with site development grants for McMinn County, Marion County, and Cleveland Bradley on their Spring Branch Industrial Park. We're working with McMinn on their TVA Invest Prep project for their North Etowah Industrial Park as well. We've also got some communities already scheduled to use the new drone and fly over. We've already got a couple of those. Chad's been able to capture some video and images for those, and we have others lined up throughout the region in Catoosa County, in SETA territory, Fannin County, Georgia, and then even in Hamilton County, we've got some sites and are working with Cleveland as well to get some footage of the Spring Branch Industrial Park. So as Chuck said, if you guys have any questions or need anything in that regard, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Any questions? It was a good report with a lot of good numbers. Before we move on, Mr. Oglesby, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Boy, I sure hope you have a driver because you're trucking down the road, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I have. It's one of those remote cars I got out of the Jetson magazine.
I was just watching you going down the road. I said, man. Okay, moving on. Aging and disability, Chris Grant.
Morning. First thing I wanted to point out is that for the first time in a very long time, we have nobody on our waiting list for meals. So we've removed 307 consumers have been removed from our waiting list, and we are at 0 in all 10 counties. So as referrals are coming in, we're able to get those out to the options counselors. It takes a few days to get somebody assessed and on, but they are not waiting. We're working with the senior centers to make sure they have the supplies that they need for their reopening, which we're still not sure when that's going to be. We're working with TCAD to put some guidance together on how to reopen safely. So hopefully we will know something soon. Right now they're remaining closed until September 30th. We're hoping to have a little bit of a heads up before they do reopen, but we'll see. I've also included inside an article from our relative caregiver program where our family advocates have referred their families. There's a Project Connect that's a research project that a couple of our families are participating in. They were selected along with their teenage children and received an Amazon Fire tablet as part of the study. And then they'll also receive a monetary payment of $150. So a lot of families were referred, but not all were accepted, but 2 of ours were accepted. And then also we referred one of the youth to a Leadership for Life program, summer program, and she participated and actually won first place out of the students that were part of that program. I also wanted to point out the letter that's on the inside. We are working through a pandemic and we've had to change the way that we conduct business, but it hasn't changed the way that we work closely with families. Even though we're doing it by telephone, we still we still give them the information that they need, the support that they need. And so I included a letter that came from a family member that worked with one of our Choices staff with her gratitude for the help that she received. Even though none of it was in person, we were able to help her get her loved one enrolled in Choices, approved, eligible, and did all of that by phone. Sometimes it takes a little more time to do it by telephone, sometimes it doesn't. But I just wanted to point out that we're still getting the job done through this pandemic.
Okay, Chris, thank you for that report. Does anyone have any questions for Chris? If not, moving on, Michelle Holt, Career and Workforce Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call your attention to the front page of the report where we have 2 new board members that have been appointed to the local workforce board, Mr. Jim Staley, the Chief Operating Officer of Goodwill Industries, who helps with some of the service with some of our targeted populations that we serve through the American Job Centers. Ethan Lloyd, the Communications Coordinator at Bledsoe Telephone Cooperative, can help with some of our rural community initiatives that we have going on. Additionally, we have some grant funds that we've been awarded around the COVID-19 pandemic. Some CARES Act funds that have been recently awarded are the Reemployment Service and Eligibility Assessment and some career and training programs. It's approximately about $670,000 for both funding streams. This is part of Governor Lee's $9.5 million investment in workforce development. Those will be forthcoming in the next few weeks. We have also received about $575,000 in National Dislocated Worker Grant funds. Those are emergency funds to help with provide temporary employment opportunities for those that have been impacted by COVID, both employers and individuals that are trying to serve. Those funds will be used to provide temporary employment opportunities to place individuals in some of our school systems and such to help with cleaning and screening and those kind of things. We also have worked directly with about 64 employers, as Beth mentioned earlier throughout this, and about 19,000 workers that were impacted due to COVID-19. Now that does just include individuals that we have worked with directly as staff to the board. Many more individuals have accessed services through the American Job Centers using computers to file claims and that sort of thing. At the bottom of your report, you'll see top claims by industry. That just shows the top claims that have come through. You'll see and you'll notice that typically those are more aligned with the service industries, and those are the individuals that we're trying to target with some of these additional grant funds that we're receiving. Hopefully we'll be able to reconnect them into some of the employment opportunities that have come available recently in our communities. I know we have many employers that are looking for individuals to work, and with the ending of the pandemic unemployment assistance, we hope that we'll be able to get some of those placed. The only other thing that I wanted, we're still holding in phase 3 with our American Job Centers, and I don't anticipate us moving forward into any type of phase 4 until we're completely COVID free. I think we're doing the best we can given the circumstances. With, we're dealing basically with a lot of the same issues that most of our employers are dealing with individuals having to, quarantine and such. So other than that, the only other thing to mention was that all of our local and regional plans were approved at the State Workforce Board on August 28th. So we're good for 2 years on our plan approvals, and we look forward to working through some of those goals. And that completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda, election of officers. Mayor Bill James. Mayor James, your nominating committee report.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of this. The nominating committee met on August 18th, 2020 by teleconference. The meeting was called to order by Chairman Bill James, and recommended a slate of officers for the fiscal year 2021. Members present: Bill James, Doug Collins, Michael Brady. Staff personnel: Beth Jones, Chuck Hammonds, and Don Kilman, and Marty Martin. The current officers are as follows: Chairman Gary Davis, Vice Chairman David Jackson, Secretary Keith Cartwright, Treasurer John Gentry. On a recommendation by the Mayor Doug Collins and a second by Mayor Michael Brady, the nominating committee recommended the current slate of members to be reappointed for the next fiscal year.
Okay, Mayor James, thank you for that report. The nominating committee is recommending to continue the same slate of officers. I guess we should ask, is there any nominations from the floor at this point? If not, this comes in the form of a motion from the nominating committee. Do I have a second?
Second, Sheree Allen for Mayor Burke.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about the slate of officers? If not, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone who has opposing votes or abstentions? If not, motion passes unanimously. And I think I can say on behalf of the entire slate of officers, thank you for your confidence. These being different times, I don't know how proud we are of the job we're doing right now. I know I'm having a lot of trouble with this laptop, but anyway, we do appreciate it. A list of standing committee members is included in your packet for finance, personnel, loan review, audit, nominating committees. So you should have a copy of those. I think they're pretty much the same as this past year, aren't they? Any other business to come before the board?
Let me just say a word or two, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
As being part of the Personnel Committee and as a father who has had lost a child, I want to say a word about those that are in our organization that have experienced loss. You guys know who you are. I just want you to know it's not a team that you sign up for, but we're praying and thinking about you guys, and we talk about you often. So carry on. It does get a little easier after 11 years, I can tell you personally, but we're standing with you, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. Any other business or any other comments anyone would like to make? If not, our next meeting date is December the 8th. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person. It's sounding a little less likely, I think, but it will be determined in the next month or two. So next meeting date is December the 8th. There's nothing else to come before the board. Have a motion to adjourn? Come on.
So moved.
Make a motion.
All right, thank you. Have a motion and a second. You get them both? No one has any opposing votes. That motion's unanimous. We are adjourned. We'll see you all later, and the SETHRA meeting begins immediately following this one, right? Yeah, John, if it's okay, if you're still there listening, let's take 5 minutes and then we'll begin the SETHRA meeting, and we'll be right on time. Oh, I'm sorry, David. Mayor Jackson, is that okay? Take 5 minutes?
Yeah, sounds good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, we don't have to sign
Development
that again,
District
do we?
staff can disconnect. And Chuck has the link up for Gary, so we're not needed to stay on. Thanks.
I have a question. I thought somebody was asking a question. If not, we'll be back in 5 minutes, Mayor James.
You ever use a weed eater, a lawnmower? Brother.
Okay, do we have everybody back with us?
I'm back, Greg.
Okay.
I'm back, John.
Lou Allen.
All right.
I'm
Okay.
here, Cartwright.
Good morning. I want to welcome everyone to the SETHRA meeting this morning. I'm going to ask Mary Gentry to lead us in invocation, please.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day, Lord. Every day is a gift from you as our creator. Lord, we ask you to be with us, Lord. Give us wisdom, Lord, as we look over this organization and those who serve it and those that the organization serves. Lord, again, just give us compassion where we need it, Lord, wisdom where we always need it, Lord. May we find you find our work to be acceptable in your sight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Okay, Miss Jennifer, will you do roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Jackson,
Here.
Mayor Ridley,
Here.
Mayor Cagle, Mayor Davis,
Here.
Mayor Brady,
Here.
Mayor Evans, Mayor Gentry,
Here.
Mayor James,
Here.
Mayor Hatcher, Mayor Thacker, Mayor Lou Allen,
Here.
Mayor Cartwright,
Here.
Mayor Lamb, Member Pelt, Member Dell, and Member Funnioli. That's everybody.
Do we have enough for a quorum, Jennifer?
We have 8 out of 16.
Okay. Who is KMC that's on here? We know who that is?
I think that's going to be one of our staff.
Okay.
We also, we have some staff members that apparently are in the waiting room. Can somebody let them in? Were you in the waiting room?
Yes, we're going to do that, Nancy.
Okay, they're going to let you in. There we go.
Okay, are they all in?
I believe so.
Okay, Mayor Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Okay. First order of business, the approval of the minutes from the June 23rd meeting, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved, Ridley.
Motion, have a second.
Second, Davis.
Second by Davis. We'll do like did on SETHRA meeting. If there's no objections, they'll pass unanimously. Any objections? They'll pass unanimously. Okay, next thing on the agenda is committee reports, finance, Mayor Gentry.
Yes, thank you. The Finance Committee did meet via Zoom on Friday, September 18th. Went over about 4 different issues. Primarily, we went over the year-ending 1920 fiscal year's financials, and also went over the July of 20 financials. And we'll ask Lynn to talk about those in just a second. Another item that we discussed was back in, I guess it was March of 20, we were presented some different options on the direct appropriations grant expenditures. I think we had 2 different options on that. I think it involved the Marion County, a roof replacement, some vehicles, some hazard pay, laptop purchases, things of that nature. We approved some of those then that went to the board, but we waited on some vehicle purchases and things and asked the full board to give the Finance Committee approval near the end of the fiscal year in May to go forward with some other expenditures if the COVID-19 pandemic didn't require that money to go to the counties for something. This was very early on in the pandemic, and we just didn't think it was wise to fully expend the direct appropriations grant. We did not have the request from the counties, as we know, for that money that wasn't able to, or we didn't have we had other programs that met the needs, I guess, up to that time. And so we did not want to lose that money. And so the Finance Committee did reconvene in May and authorized the rest of those expenditures. What we failed to do really is bring that back to the full board. And we wanted to do that now to let you know that we did go forward with some vehicle purchases to fully expend those direct appropriations, and would want that included in the minutes of today's meeting in case for future audit and that sort of thing. But we did just want to let the committee did. We did have to go back, and then we were able to do the rest of those purchases that we talked about back in the March meeting. So I just want to bring the full board up on that issue and then have that included in the minutes. Also, we talked about in the meeting a purchasing policy change and what requires the executive director and to get approval on, and we were talking about items over $10,000. We don't have to, we competitively bid any item over $25,000. The committee exhausted kind of that discussion and really decided not to take any action at this time. However, they did make a motion that we would give a courtesy list to the board every quarter of any and all expenditures over $3,000, between $3,000 and that $25,000. Anything over $25,000 has to have board approval anyway, but we would just have that as part of the packet. For anything over $3,000 would be put in the packet for the board's information and be able to, for them to ask any questions. $3,000, if I recall, is the limit that requires at least 3 quotes, not competitively bid or by sale bid, but it does require quotes. So we thought that would just be good information that the finance department would put that list together each quarter for the board. And that actually came in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, that be placed in the packets.
Okay, you hear a motion, Mayor Gentry, to hear a second.
Second, Lou Allen.
Second. Any objections? If not, passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr.
And after that, I would ask Mr. Lynn Roberts if he wants to present the financials that he presented to the Finance Committee. They did come in the form of a motion to approve once he does go over those.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Gentry.
Okay. Will you be putting those up, Jennifer, or am I sharing my screen?
But it says I'm not able to share my screen.
Okay. I'm unable to share mine as well. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Does everybody have their copy of the statements?
Yes, Lynn, I have mine. I think everybody has theirs.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lynn.
If so, we'll proceed. Good morning, and thank you all for your time this morning. Today, we're first going to be looking at preliminary year-end results for the 2020 fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. They're still preliminary and unaudited. Reason for that being we implemented an upgraded account coding system early in our 2020 fiscal year. We've had to do a great deal of reconciliation work due to part of the year's information being under the old coding system and the rest being under the new coding system. We've had to be very meticulous in to make sure rolling account balances are carried forward and corrected and correctly stated going forward. As of last week, we were still processing year-end adjustments and reclass entries. Our audit firm was delayed a few weeks in coming out to do their preliminary audit field work. Some of their staff had been exposed to the virus at another client, and they had a quarantine situation there for a while. They've not been able to reschedule coming out and finishing their field work yet, but we hope that will happen in the next couple of weeks. So now looking at the first set of operating statements for the year end June 30th, we can look at the income statement by program compared to budget year as a percentage. The statement reflects, if we look on down, a surplus of revenue over expenses of $370,000. With the transportation systems operating grants executed, we were able to pick up expenditures through the year and alleviate deficits that we were showing through the year by those grants being executed. And even with the $286,000 in match that you can see in the capital match column, we were able to cover the year pretty well as far as the transportation systems. The capital purchases are kind of separated out from operating results. This is depicted separately here from operating results. The governmental fund statements differ from those of a private entity, as capital purchases are expensed in the period in which they occur and not depreciated over time. So we like to look at our operating results separately from capital purchases. And as we see, even with the match, we were showing a surplus of revenue over expenses. The next statement, we'll be looking at the income statement by budget line item category. We can see that we were helped out by fuel prices this year. Even despite repair and maintenance on the vehicles being a great deal over budget, fuel prices helped us out, and we can see that after the $286,000 in match down there at the bottom line, we're showing the $370,000 surplus. Does anybody have any questions about those two statements? Okay, if not, we will next look at the capital outlay schedule. It's the one with the bus purchases listed. This is to let everybody see where the match comes from. On this one, we can see that we purchased 28 buses. We expended 1.5 million for the buses, got reimbursed 1.2 million from grant funding, resulting in the $286,000 that SETHRA had to provide in match. And that, with that surplus of the 370,000, that took our fund balance up to 9.1 million at the end of the year from 8.7 million. Some supplementary information on the year-end results there. Administrative costs for the year ran at 4.9% of total expenditures. As of June 30th, our regular operating cash in days is right at 130 days, down from 150 days at the beginning of the year. That's the cash at June 30th of 5.5 million, and that's calculated by just averaging out the $15 million in expenses over 365 days to get an average daily expense number, and then dividing that into the cash on hand at the time. Also, our fund balance ratio, the 9.1 million divided by the 15 million in total expenditures, is right at 0.59. The last average of similar entities of that in the state was around 0.3 or 0.35. Again, the admin services cost ran about 4.9% of total expenses, and the total admin services cost were $761,032. Does anyone have any questions or comments about June 30th?
I would just note that when we made the motion, we understood that the motion to approve was understanding they were unaudited for a year. Good change. Thank you.
Okay, Liam, you don't go ahead and do July 31st too and do them both in one motion, or do we need?
Yes, sir, I can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Okay, if we look at July's schedule of revenues, expenditures, as a percent of budget, it's hard to really tell much in the first period of the year. The big item at the top, the program 1000, that's our general fund program designation. The $312,000 deficit. That is due to the fact that we pay all of the agency insurance in one huge premium payment at the beginning of the year. That's all insurances. That's workers' comp, vehicle, property, liability, everything in one big whack there. And that, as of the end of July, that was in suspense account in the general fund. That expense will be allocated out based on our cost allocation plan to the programs and grants, and we will be able to recoup that expenditure through the programs and grants. But as of July 31st, it's in a suspense account waiting to be allocated. Other than that, everything looks nominal in all the other programs. Transportation in good shape so far. And the same with the income statement as by line item category. We see a big insurance payment there, and the 98% of the budget expended, dropping down to a deficit for the end of July of $231,000.
Anything else, Lynn?
I think that's it.
Okay. This comes in a form of motion from Finance Committee. Do I have a second?
Yes. George Thacker.
Thank you, Mayor Thacker. Any questions or comments? Okay, any objections? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Lynn, and the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is the Personnel Committee, and I'm gonna move it down to after the Executive Director's report. So we're gonna go to the department updates, program numbers, Ms. Nancy.
In your packet, you should have received 2 pages that shows you the numbers that our staff have served since July the 1st. It just kind of gives you an idea of the services that we have provided through the agency just in this funding cycle. This is the first time we've given you those kinds of numbers. It's just a quick snapshot of what our staff are doing on a regular basis.
Okay. Any questions about the numbers from anyone? Thank you, Miss Nancy. Next thing, success story, Miss Margie.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. As many of you know, each and every program within the SETHRA family can tell multiple success stories. Stories where our resources make the difference in the life of a client and provide a long-term impact on their situation. The Court-Appointed Special Advocate Program is grateful for the resources available through SETHRA and the ability to utilize them to help to work to promote the best interest of the children that are abused and neglected in the court system who are appointed to us by the juvenile judges. As the program director for SETHRA CASA, I would like to share one of our recent success stories for a Marion County case. As we know, abuse comes in many forms. However, being economically disadvantaged, or in other words, poor, should not be considered as a form of abuse or a reason for children to be placed into foster care. Unfortunately, a family was separated and the children were placed into foster care for this very reason. The parents had not abused or neglected the children, but the living conditions were not exactly what we would think of as desirable. With both of the parents being intellectually disabled, the sole source of income was their disability. The parents struggled in many areas and work was not an option for them. Despite the circumstances, they always worked to keep a roof over the children's heads, and food in their home. They were dependent on food stamps, the food bank, the school feeding programs, but the children were fed. Upon the removal of DCS, the parents were soon evicted for their home and they became homeless. As the CASA advocate worked with the children, the foster parents, the biological parents, and DCS, it became apparent that this family was separated because of a financial status, not because of actual abuse or neglect. The parents were doing the best they could with what they had to work with. In this situation, most would think that children would benefit from being in foster care rather than being with their parents. That's not the case. These parents were often able to utilize SETHRA transportation, but even if they had to walk, they never missed a visitation, a school meeting, a doctor's appointment, or court reviews or any other type of meeting. They were doing everything that they could to get their children back, and they were getting nowhere. It was the opinion of CASA that instead of removal, perhaps DCS should have provided services to the family and assisted them with their daily struggles and helped them locate resources that would ease their burden. CASA made the referral to the CSBG program, which allowed for the family to obtain housing through the Homeless Renewal Assistance Program. Once the parents were in their home and a satisfactory walkthrough was conducted by CASA and DCS, the children were allowed to begin a trial home placement. As the family is dependent on food stamps in the school feeding program, the family was also referred to receive commodities to place additional food into the home. CASA knew that the family would need more assistance. And if they were going to maintain their housing, they had to have additional help. So a referral for energy assistance was made. The family was approved and received energy assistance. This family was reunified, and the children were thankful to be back in the home with their parents. The children didn't know why they had been removed. They knew they weren't abused, and they never understood why they were placed in foster care and taken away from their parents. But the children didn't know that they were poor. They knew they didn't have the same things as everyone else, but they didn't know exactly what poor was. So if not for the resources of CASA, the transportation program, CSBG, homeless assistance, LIHEAP, energy assistance, and commodities provided from SETHRA, reunification for this family would not have been possible. So for that, I'm very grateful for the resources that we have under SETHRA and to be a part of this family.
Thank you, Ms. Margie. Any questions for her? Okay, thank you again for that success story. Okay, next thing on the agenda is Ms. Karen Davis, transfer of CSBG and LIHEAP funds.
Yes, sir. I come to you, or I have came to you several years in a row to the CSBG and the LIHEAP program fiscal year ends on September 30th. And to make sure that we serve as many clients as possible, we always ask the board's permission to move funds between the counties. And that's what I'm doing today, to make sure that we serve as many clients as possible and to utilize all of the program funds that we are available to. So if the board approves this, we would have to have a motion from the board to move the funds between the counties that we serve.
What counties are going to be affected, Ms. Karen?
We haven't actually ran the updated report. We do that at the end of the year and to see which counties would need the funds. And so there may be some counties that situations that we do not need to move the funds. But if this were to be necessary, we would always ask the board's permission.
Okay. You've heard Ms. Karen's request. I hear a motion to allow her to move these funds if necessary.
Motion Brady.
I have a motion by Mayor Brady. Do we have a second?
Second, Ridley.
Thank you, Mayor Ridley. Are there any of those, anyone opposed?
Chairman, quick question. Are we seeing less demand for these services due to the other assistance, whether it be the accelerated or elevated, I guess better term, unemployment benefits, stimulus money? Have we seen less demand for some of our services?
Yes, sir, we did. But as the extra funds for, say, the federal unemployment, we have saw an increase in the applications probably in the last 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if no one's opposed, it will pass unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Ms. Karen. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the nominating committee. We will leave the same nominating committee in place from last year. That'll be Mayor Ridley as chairman, Mayor Davis, and Mayor Brady. If y'all accept those, that nominating committee, y'all accept that job, I greatly appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next thing on the agenda is Executive Director report. Ms. Nancy.
My report will be rather quick. I wanted to remind you all that the HRAs are still going through the sunset audit. We know that there's going to be some changes that will have to be made at the agency level, but we won't know everything until that report is sent out, and we are anticipating that report sometime in the next month or so. Also, just to let you know, Jennifer Hicks has done such a fantastic job being the assistant to us. She applied for and has been promoted to be our CSBG LIHEAP program director. So yay for her. We have been working with CARTA regarding the STS building. The FTA gave us the instructions of what we needed to do. We and CARTA, SETHRA board approved the resolution, and we had to wait for CARTA's board to approve the resolution and get all of their paperwork. And right now, Chris and I have a meeting scheduled with Lisa at CARTA tomorrow afternoon to finalize that, that agreement for the sale of the building. And that's it for my report.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nancy. Now to go back to the Personnel Committee, Chairman of the Personnel is Mr. Mayor or County Exec Cartwright.
Yeah, good morning, Chairman, and the rest of everybody. The Personnel Committee met Monday, September the 21st at 8:30 Central Time via Zoom. The committee members present, Mayors Keith Cartwright, Michael Brady, Gary Davis, Paul Wayne Evans, and David Jackson ex officio. Two motions prominent that came from the Personnel Committee. Number one, the recommendation to submit revised employee handbooks. Nancy, I don't know if those handbooks have been given out. I know that would be quick if we just approved it through personnel, but this comes as a recommendation that these amendments be accepted. So I think the first thing that goes, Chairman, in front of the committee, that we accept these amendments.
That comes in form of motion, correct? We have a motion.
I've lost sound.
Okay. That comes in form of motion, correct? Okay. Do we have a second?
We've lost all sound, Chairman.
I can hear you now. Well, you're off again. Let's hold up just a second till we get some technical difficulties fixed here.
Are we back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, I don't know what all you got.
That come in form of motion, correct?
Came in the form of a motion.
Do we have a second?
I can't hear anything.
Second, Lou Allen.
Second by Mayor Lou Allen. Any questions or comments?
What were the amendments to the policy?
You hear?
Nancy, you want to cover that?
Yes, I will. Mayor Gentry, there were just two small changes. The first one, we broke out the benefits for full-time and part-time employees, just so it was a little clearer. There was nothing added or deleted. We just broke those out. And then on the section regarding travel, when the comptroller's office had talked to us about travel earlier in the year, we told them that we followed the state travel guidelines. And their recommendation at that time was that we add the word comprehensive, because the state, it says State of Tennessee comprehensive travel regulations. So we just added the word comprehensive in that section. Those are the only two changes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any, that passes unanimously. Mr. Chairman?
The next major agenda item on it was the evaluation of Executive Director Nancy Sutherland's job performance. It comes as a motion from the Personnel Committee that the full board terminate Executive Director Nancy Sutherland's employment effective immediately 9/22/20 with pay through November the 30th, 2020 with all accrued PTO. This comes as a motion from the Personnel Committee.
All right, you hear the motion. Do you have a second?
I've lost everything.
Second, Ridley.
Second from Ridley. Questions or comments?
Got it.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Jennifer, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Jackson,
Yes.
Mayor Ridley,
Yes.
Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Brady,
Yes.
Mayor Gentry, Mayor James, Mayor Lou Allen, and Executive Cartwright.
Yes.
Is that, did we get Mayor Gentry?
He did not answer me.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do I hear any other business for the board? If not, do I hear a motion we adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to have a second.
Second, Cartwright.
Second. Meeting's adjourned. Thank everyone. Everyone stay safe and stay as healthy as possible. Thank you all.
Hey, I'm sorry, my screen went blank. Is anyone still there?
Well, I'm here, John, but they adjourned the meeting.
Okay. Well, I could hear you, but I couldn't see anything, and I couldn't hit my mute, but unmute my button.
Well, evidently there was 2 or 3 that way because there was some no responses on the vote.
All my screen just said Zoom, and I couldn't. I don't know where it went, but it's back.
Oh, okay. Well, it's over, so I guess, yeah. Everybody, good meeting. Take care.
Sure.